Chito Vera has scored 7 knockdowns in his last 2 fights. 3 against Rob Font and 4 against Dominick Cruz, even though they only credit him with 3. Chito Vera is something else, man. He is probably the most dangerous bantamweight in the world. He has the most finishes in bantamweight history now, after he knocked out Dominick Cruz with 1 kick. Perfectly placed, calculated to a T. The guy put on one of the most intelligent performances. Marlon Vera is an absolute assassin. The sheer confidence that he approaches these fights with and his calm demeanor is disturbing to watch. I mean, these guys look like they're doing very well against him, and then he always is able to catch them. And it's never a fluke. It's never just a shot out of nowhere that he didn't mean to land or something like that. Marlon Vera is extremely calculated on what he wants to land on you, and it showed throughout this entire fight. It looked like Dominick Cruz is doing very well. It looked like he may have been winning rounds. Now it's an argument with those knockdowns. Did Chito actually win those rounds, or did Cruz do his output and all that? It's up for debate, but it looked like the fight was going well for Cruz if you were solely looking at scoring the fight. But looking at how the fight was unfolding technically, the lore of it all, you start to notice that Cruz was falling behind gradually as Chito was calculating every single move. The fight started off with Cruz having to set his combinations off of his own kicks to have some kind of success. They were the main reasons why any of his shots were actually landing. It all came from the kicks. If the kick would land, it would cause Chito to get unbalanced. Therefore, his impenetrable defense, which I'm going to be talking about, some of the best defense I've ever seen from a fighter. Cruz was able to negate all that defense if he was able to cause some kind of imbalance. Therefore, his punches were able to land on Chito. This happened multiple times throughout the entire fight. That's why those blitzing combinations, some of the shots were landing. If he wasn't setting off his own kicks, 90% of the punches were not landing. Chito almost defended every single one of them. And that also came with the takedowns. You'll be able to take Chito down from rapid angles. Eventually, though, Chito started to get better. He started to evolve in the fight, start to check the kicks, which means that Cruz's combos were not landing anymore. Defend the takedowns, leaving Cruz with little options for success. Really look at the later rounds there, the 3rd and the 4th rounds, and ask yourself how much success did Cruz really have. Cruz had to start relying on Chito to make mistakes of his own, whether it be throwing a naked leg kick and Cruz taking him down with that. For the most part, once Chito started to calculate the moves, he started to download the data, it was becoming much more frustrating for Cruz to have any kind of success. The defense was just too strong. Chito might be the hardest guy to hit clean in the bantamweight division, and it's kind of ironic because he was fighting Dominick Cruz, who himself was always known to be like the hardest guy to hit, and he showed to have even superior defense in front of that legend. And Chito constantly throughout the entire fight was throwing out feelers. Nothing too committed moving forward. As an offensive fighter, most of his attacks were not meant to land with any kind of power. Most of them were setups. They were a way to feel out for the big shots. For an example, when he set up that jab right hand combo, he double jab in the first round to see where Dominick Cruz is going to move. That double jab was ultimately the feeler for 2 rounds later. He did it again, but this time put the right hand behind it, committing with the power, and dropped Cruz. He caught Cruz with awesome timing, getting him when he would start to lean inward, and then the natural instinct is to move away from the shots, but double jabbing for your right hand as the opponent's back is close to the fence is going to cause a jam up in space. Cruz ran out of space, the right hand landed and dropped him. Or even the time that Chito landed the jab and dropped Cruz. They both threw a jab at each other and they both landed, but the reason why Chito's had more effect and why his landed first was mainly because of difference of boxing fundamentals and just generally the power difference between the two. Look where their hands are. Chito's hand is always idly in front of him and Cruz, right in between each other. His hand is up, so all he has to do is extend it forward. It's a shorter distance to travel for your jab when you have this textbook stance. And then look at Dominick Cruz's hand, it's all the way down to his waist. He has to lift it up at Chito's face in order to land it, which is a further distance for it to land. His ability to knock down Cruz with almost every single punch he landed clean, and he did the same thing in Rob Font, shows that this guy's power cannot be trifled with. Every fighter moving forward has to respect his power, like he can knock you down with any shot, and very few bantamweights can do that. It's quite unique because if you've been watching Chito for a long time, he's never been that kind of fighter. He never showed this level of power in his hands that he's now displaying in front of all of us. It's actually super exciting to watch. But these offensive weapons didn't come too often. Most of Chito's offensive tools were feelers to see which way Dominick Cruz is going to move, what would happen if I threw a front kick, what would happen if I take this angle? What would happen if I just throw out a feint or just throw out a jab? And he eventually started to notice that Cruz is always moving out at the same direction the strike is getting thrown at. So if, for an example, Chito throws an orthodox jab with his left hand and slightly steps off to his own left, Cruz is going to angle off with the jab So even if it lands on Cruz, it's going to cause a minimal amount of damage, really nothing at all. When you move with punches, when you move with kicks, you decrease the impact of the blows even if they land, but at the same time, Cruz is so confident in his speed that he's going to be able to get away from these kind of shots. So when Chito's throwing, for an example, this jab, Cruz is thinking that he's getting away from Chito's attack. But Chito is thinking, I'm about to catch this fool when he does it again. And that's what led to these head kicks. And I'd say head kicks plural because there was one in the second round. It was almost the exact same thing that happened in the finishing sequence. Chito threw in a hopping left hook to get in a little bit closer on Cruz, knowing that Cruz is going to move away. So it was all precog. It was all predicted from Chito. Cruz is going to move out with that left hook, and that leads Chito to intercept that head movement with a head kick. Chito's an excellent kicker, one of the best kickers in the whole weight class. And the thing is, it does land with the toes. There was an error in that form. This fight should have been over in the second round. If only Chito put up the kick correctly like he did in the fourth round. He curved his leg and pointed the knee downward. And what it tells me is he's probably not right leg dominant. I mean, if he's right leg dominant and he's not left leg dominant, that's pretty insane. Because his left kicks look way better than his right kicks. That's what it has to be, because whenever you see like an amateur fighter or someone who doesn't really throw kicks with a specific leg, they awkwardly angle it like that. It's most likely because they don't have the full extension, the full dexterity with that leg. I mean, the kick came up pretty high, so look at that and then look at the difference with the knockout sequence. This time Chito's in southpaw, so he's going to be throwing it with his left, starting it off with a right hook, knowing that Cruz is going to move out the same direction, and now look at the form of the kick as it smacks Cruz in the face. Absolutely perfect form that lands with the top of the foot. And notice also that Chito didn't overthrow the kick like he did last time. He didn't reach all the way upward like that, showing that he perfectly timed the opening and knew that it would land with confidence. That is the thing about this guy. He is willing to sacrifice rounds because he knows he's eventually going to find that shot. That's a dangerous fighter, man. A guy who's willing to do that is insane, and it always works out for him. He did the same thing as Frankie Edgar. But the difference with this fight is Dominick Cruz is a naturally difficult style for Chito to fight against. A guy who throws a lot of volume. He's always active. He's a hard guy to hit in general. Because of all that, a lot of fighters get kind of frustrated and they start losing time to catch this guy, and then Cruz eventually wins on a decision because he just outworked you. Chito knew the whole time. He was not in any kind of rush. He was calculating the fight from the very beginning all the way to the knockout in the fourth. That's scary, man. That's like assassin stuff, man. Every single round, he gave that look to Cruz like, you don't know what's coming. I'm about to get you. And one of the most telling moments of the entire fight was in the second round, about 1 minute and 32 seconds, where Dominick Cruz throws a high feint to get the distraction upward so he can land a leg kick, but Chito was onto it, man. He goes to check and lift his leg above the kick, causing overextension, and Cruz goes forward for the attack, even though he didn't take the balance away, which was a mistake on his part. He never lands strikes on Chito when he doesn't land the kick first, so he throws a jab into a right overhand, which gets blocked by Chito's left elbow, and Cruz dips to his left side as Chito pivots and gets that profile view on Cruz, which is one of the most dangerous angles you can get on anybody, man, because you have full view of them. Look at Chito's eyes, look at Cruz's head. Cruz can only look at Chito using most of his peripherals. Can't really focus on what Chito is doing here, so that is why you saw Cruz throw a winging left hook from the stance, which was very reckless for him to do. But Chito did not attack. He felt it out instead, as Cruz felt like he was in danger. Simply just keeps out the post on Cruz and watches as that left hook misses. That is such a discouraging situation that happened there for Dominick Cruz. And that leads into the defense. This is what I want to get into more detail. A lot of people seem to think that Cruz was landing all of these shots. He was blitzing down Vera and landing punches all over the place, winning rounds because of them. Judges thought so as well, knowing that Dominick Cruz won the first 2 rounds on the official scorecards and Chito won the 3rd round. Well, here's how the scenarios went down when Cruz did not land his kicks and instead blitzed down only using his hands. So most of these exchanges happen with Chito in southpaw and Dominick Cruz in orthodox, and Cruz always tries to parry away the lead hand to open up the center. He does this to get Chito's focus on Cruz's left side so he doesn't see the right straight that's going to come down the center. But Chito's always onto it. He parried it every single time. And Chito switches backwards to create distance between him and Cruz so he can see the punches from a further distance, and also knowing that he has a reach advantage. Cruz makes it look like he's going to throw a left hook and Chito tries to block it, but Cruz intelligently changes that up and pulls down Chito's hand, throwing down the right straight, which gets parried again. But ultimately, this does work out for Cruz, the fact that he pulled down Chito's right hand to open up that side, for him to just graze very slightly a left straight as he's switching stances forward as well, trying to catch up to Chito. And then he switches again for a right straight, which Chito pulls away from. And always notice, after every single one of these blitz, Chito's always looking to angle off to one side, getting away from the fence. Or what about this sequence right here at the end of the first round? Dominick Cruz throws a 1-2 combo, which Chito parries the jab and pulls away from the right hand, causing it to overextend. Whenever that happens, Cruz always likes to follow up and switch stances forward so he's not caught in too much of a vulnerable stance. He throws a winging left hook, which gets deflected by Chito's right shoulder. And as he's continuously switching forward, trying to catch up to Chito and find different kind of angles, Chito blocks Cruz's right hand, again deflects his left hook. And the only shot that Cruz slightly landed and only grazed was his right straight, as Chito looked to parry with the wrong hand and was a bit too slow with it. Chito wants his left hand to parry instead of his right, but he brought his left hand a little too low and he couldn't bring it up in time, so he tried to parry with his right instead and just gets grazed very slightly by the punch and posts away from Cruz's left. Chito easily rotates away from the fence. Chito's in the southpaw stance and Cruz is an orthodox, as Cruz tries to parry the lead hand away to open up the center and also get Chito's focus on Cruz's left side as he's throwing a right hand down the center, which gets easily parried. And Chito stuffs inside the center his right arm, which is going to create a natural guard against Dominick Cruz's left overhand, which also Chito ducks under. Knowing that Cruz is going to continue his attack, Chito is switching stances backwards, which is going to create some distance between him and Cruz as he pulls away from the uppercut and then bobs and weaves on the outside of Cruz's left hook. And look how he loses Cruz completely. The guard was perfect, the parry was perfect, the head movement, the footwork, the pivot, and the exit. It was just so beautiful to watch. Or we go in this sequence where they're both in the same stances again from the last one. Cruz does a similar thing. He tries to parry the lead hand, open up the center, and makes Chito think like he's going to throw another right straight. But he fakes it this time, and Chito bites on it. He tries to parry it just like he did last time. And Cruz instead goes over the top with his left hook, which gets blocked again by Chito with a very similar defense he did last time, and then goes down the center with his right straight, but Chito is onto it. He slips on the outside and parries the shot away, and then Cruz starts to switch into the opposite stance to throw his left hand, thinking that Chito was going to move away from him, but instead, Chito bobs and weaves again on the outside of the punch and pulls away from the uppercut and L steps away from the cage, angling off and exiting off perfectly, and then switches the positions of him and Cruz. Look where Cruz is now and look where Chito is now. Chito is in the advantage. So as you can see, there's many moments of these sequences happening, and Chito rarely ever got hit. And if he got hit, it was most of the time grazing shots. But because of how fast Cruz is, it leads a lot of people to believe like these punches are landing flush or clean and they're adding up damage and all that stuff, when in reality, Chito's defending 90% of these punches. So for an example, if I were to make a Who Really Won video on this and looked at each of these rounds, you would have to give these rounds to Chito for the fact that most of Cruz's shots were not really landing. They were hitting the arms, the shoulder, getting dodged and weaved on. It makes people believe like they're landing. In reality, they're actually not. And it's crazy because in that fourth round, right before the knockout, Cruz was a minus 120. He was actually the favorite before the knockout happened. So anybody who got on the live odds and put something on Chito and saw how the fight was actually playing out, congrats to you guys, man. You absolutely deserve it. And that's ultimately the end of the breakdown, guys. One fight down, two more to go to dictate who will fight for the championship next. So it looks like it's going to be Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw, with Chito not having a big win over Dominick Cruz. We still got to see Jose Aldo versus Merab and see if there's any kind of spectacular win there. And we also have to see how Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley goes down, because if Petr Yan wins, he perhaps doesn't deserve a title shot. But if Sean O'Malley, let's say, knocks Petr Yan out in the first round in a devastating fashion, he might get a title shot for that. I mean, the guy's a big name, he's a big star and all that. I understand that Chito beat him not too long ago, but due to the star power that O'Malley has, it's going to push him a little bit forward. If Jose Aldo destroys Merab, then I think it's a no-brainer that Jose Aldo deserves a title shot over Chito and Sean O'Malley. For the fact that he beat Chito, he's higher in the rankings, he has bigger wins already, and he's definitely way over O'Malley. So it mostly comes down to how Jose Aldo looks and how he beats Merab. If it goes to like a split decision or something like that, then Chito might get the title shot. shot if O'Malley doesn't start Jan in like the first round. So hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and if you did, make sure to give this a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.